Hey everybody, just coming in here to have a look around, and my Ctenopoma was sitting out right under the bright light having some of its dinner. I just got done feeding everybody. You can actually see a lot of those cichlid pellets still floating around the tank. Everybody's working on them. But that Ctenopoma is just such an interesting looking fish. Whenever it's out and about like this, I like to try to get some of it on video. Just have a little chat about it. I personally have had great experiences with this fish. Little tiny bit of fussiness when it came to feeding. It used to eat freeze-dried krill. I would put, 4 or 5 freeze-dried krill in the tank every day, and it would eat those. And then occasionally it would eat these floating cichlid pellets, which is what it's eating now. But then one day it just stopped eating the krill. It just would not eat it. The krill just floated around the tank until it went rotten. And I guess it must have eaten some of it at some point, because it didn't starve to death, and it was quite a while that I continued feeding it its krill. But for all I know, it might have gone hungry for 2 or 3 days at a time until I fed it some more of the cichlid pellets. And eventually I realized it wasn't eating the krill anymore, and I switched over and just started feeding it the floating cichlid pellets. And after that, I've never had any more problem with it. That was maybe, a year ago. It kind of just stopped eating the krill. It was also right after my Ctenopoma acutirostre died. I had a Ctenopoma catfish in this tank, and it more or less grew up with that Ctenopoma. I got them both when they were very small, years ago. And they used to swim around the tank together and pal around all the time, and they were almost always in reasonably close proximity to each other. And then when the catfish died for unknown reasons, about, maybe a year ago, 9 months ago, something like that, the behavior of the Ctenopoma became a little bit different. It got a lot more reclusive, and its eating changed. It went from eating the freeze-dried krill on a regular basis to simply refusing to eat it, which, again, no idea why. But as I said, once I got it figured out, I now know that it just likes those cichlid pellets, and that's all it really eats. I could probably feed it crickets. I've got a bajillion of them outside in the yard. I don't spray any chemicals. I know a lot of people are concerned about, collecting insects from the outdoors. If you live somewhere, if you live, say, in an apartment complex where they come around and you don't know what they're spraying because they're treating for this or spraying for that, I would say definitely don't, take any bugs or anything you find in those conditions and feed them to your fish. But if you live somewhere where I do, where I've got an acre of property and I don't spray any chemicals or anything out in the yard, so any crickets that I might find out in the backyard are certainly going to be free of any pesticides or chemicals or fertilizers or anything really. So I don't have any issue with doing that. And in fact, way back in the day, I used to have an African butterfly fish, and that's kind of why I'm talking about this. Is with the African butterfly fish, I used to feed it crickets to the point where it became almost exclusively dependent on crickets. And in the winter, I would have to buy crickets and run over to PetSmart all the time. And I had a little little housing thing where I would keep the crickets. I'd buy 6 dozen at a time, and it was just a pain in the butt. So I eventually got the African butterfly fish weaned off of the live crickets and got it to eating cichlid pellets, and within 6 months it developed dropsy and got all bloated up and died. So I don't know if switching its diet had anything to do with it or not. But with this one, I've just decided never to take the chance. Probably when it was younger, I gave it some live crickets or something like that at one point. I know it's eaten several of my fish over the years. This fish, that Ctenopoma right there, has actually eaten Otocinclus catfish. I used to have a bunch of Otocinclus in this tank, and one by one, this fish ate them. I actually saw it gobble on a few and then spit them back out because the Otocinclus have little spikes or barbs or something on them. But slowly but surely, they did eventually all get eaten. And again, I'm pretty sure it was that Ctenopoma is responsible for where they went. So other than the inadvertent live food. I've never really fed this Ctenopoma live food. I've always stuck to dried, prepared food for it. And I will say it will not eat anything that's not on the surface. I've never seen it eat any kind of food that sinks down into the water at all. Even the shrimp, when it would eat the shrimp, if it started to sink, it was just the other fish would get it. The Ctenopoma was just done once it left the surface and was no longer floating. Now again, other fish, live fish, it will come up below them and gobble them up. But as far as its food, dry food or crickets, insects like that, it has to be floating on the surface for it to eat it. At least that's my experience with this particular fish. Your experience may vary. So there you go, everybody. There's a nice little look at my Ctenopoma before I get the lights turned out tonight. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss anything I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. That and all the glare is my 125 gallon tank. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you real soon in the next one.